Hey, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, my name's Jim Stewart, Executive Director of Fight for the Forgotten. And wow, do we have a story. And if you can follow this story to at least, I don't call it the end because no story has an ending. Each and every one of our stories is always being told. So what I'd like to do is tell our story from pretty much its infancy and show you why we do what we do. However, I want to start off with, if you can put into your mind the visualization of a domino effect. And we all know what that is. We as kids, we like to set up dominoes and create a path and just visualize what that can look like. And then we take our finger and then push the first domino over. And that's the most fun because you don't know if it's going to take it to its end. And when it just transitions all the way to the end, you have just a piece about you that you created that, and you were the one that pushed the first domino. Now, what I do is I personally believe that there is a God that created this universe. And I believe he created each and every one of us for good works and for his purposes and for his glory. And in a sense, we as humans can be a part of God's domino story if we allow ourselves to be. So let me start off this story and just keep that in mind, the domino effect. And I might have a question at the end about who you think the domino was. So the story starts off with a 13-year-old boy. And this 13-year-old boy was badly, ruthlessly bullied in school. So much so, there were times when the entire class would play a prank on this young boy and it be a game to the whole class. And the prank happens and he kind of looks around and sees every one of his classmates laughing hysterically and people calling out his name and saying, "You're worthless. Why are you even here?" He even heard, "You should just kill yourself." And that can carry with us unless there's a break. And we're going to talk about those breaks and how we can fight through those situations. But that 13-year-old boy, after being ruthlessly, terribly bullied, he went deep in depression and even attempted suicide. So there are some things that even kids, even friends that we have at a young age, are going through a lot of things that we can help encourage them and empower them. Well, what happened was this boy's parents pulled him out of that school and looked for another school, and they decided on a bigger school there in Dallas area. This school had a wrestling team and actually 2 wrestling coaches. So they decided to go and hope that maybe he would take on to wrestling. It just so happened that the 2 coaches were Olympic gold medal wrestling winners. 2 coaches, same school, both Olympic gold medal winners, Kendall Cross and Kenny Mundy. And those 2 guys got a hold of this boy and just put him around their arm and just said, if you will listen to us, if you'll follow our instructions, if you'll help us guide you, we think maybe you could be a state champion by the time you get out of school. Well, his sophomore year, he started wrestling. And guess what? His first year, he won 1 match. And the story is his opponent slipped and fell on the mat, and he fell on him. And that was the only reason he won. And so he did get one win his sophomore year, but let's push it forward to the end of his senior year. At the end of his senior year, he didn't not only win state championship, but he won 2 national championships as well. So he became great in a short amount of time. That you would think would just put somebody on the map. So he was catapulted into professional fighting, mixed martial arts fighting in UFC, on The Ultimate Fighter. And with that, he became an up-and-coming, one of the youngest heavyweights ever to enter the UFC conference. He was a winner, and he won. When his record was 10 wins and 2 losses, and during that time, his depression and everything he carried with him at 13 years old kept carrying forward with him, even in success. And when he was 13, his dream was to become a mixed martial artist and a professional fighter. He saw that dream come true. And yet, even when he won and his hand was raised to have won that match, he was thinking, is this all there is? Is this it? And so with that 10-2 record, he found himself using drugs and alcohol to cope with what was inside of him, was the depression that he never did get to kick. So at some point in time, he was starting to train for his next fight. So he entered into his training camp in Denver, Colorado. And when he walked in, he noticed that there was something a little different about that day, because all these major fighters that were training for their fights stopped training and looked at him. He looked around and then saw the coach back in his office, and the coach got his attention and waved him on back to his office. So when Justin Wren, Ultimate Fighter, bullied as a kid, walked into that coach's office, he sat down and the coach said, "Justin, we've had a vote, and the vote was 34-1, and you've been voted off our team." And talk about devastation, brokenness, and not knowing what the next step in life is. He walked out of there in total depression, not understanding what just happened. Well, it just so happened that a friend of Justin's that lives in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, he was calling and texting and calling and leaving messages and texting messages, and he was brutal in his forcefulness in getting a hold of Justin. And it was so much so that Justin couldn't say no to at least finally answering the phone. The friend said, "Justin, I want you to come to a Christian men's retreat." Well, that is not what Justin wanted to hear. He didn't think that. He thought maybe he needed rehab. He didn't think that was the answer, because he didn't want to be sitting around a campfire holding hands with a bunch of guys singing Kumbaya. However, the friend was forceful, and he was fighting for Justin. And he finally did talk him into going to that men's retreat. And during that men's retreat, Justin said he felt peace in his heart. He felt like the guys there did not judge him. He felt like they were real. And he really felt, and as in his own quote, he said, they loved me. They loved the hell out of me. And that's how powerful love is. Love, when it's that powerful, can defeat hate. It can defeat evil. It can defeat depression and suicidal thoughts. It can. And who is the agent of love? That's us. And I'm going to call every one of us on the East Coast and the West Coast to have our hands up, to be saying, I want to be one of those that is an agent of love that can change history and can help someone else. So the story continues. He quit fighting for a while, 5 years, in fact, got into what he called ministry. He didn't know how to serve, but during a year's time, he realized he had a vision of a group of people that needed his help, is all he could see, a movie in his mind of small people that were hurting, dying, big bellies, hungry, thirsty, forgotten. He said he heard all those names in the vision. So when he told this story to a young man, he said, I know who that is. It's the Batwa Pygmies in the rainforest, the Ituri rainforest in the Congo. And I'm going in 3 weeks. Let's talk about the domino effect. And the dominoes keep falling. He found out that he had the opportunity to go to the Congo 3 weeks after he had that vision. And that's a great picture of what a celebration of clean water can look like. It's a greater celebration than any other celebration in history in the world, because people that don't have clean water can't live, can't thrive, can't do anything but die. So that is a huge celebration. He lived with the Pygmies. He went 4 or 5 different times, but one time he lived there inside their camp with the tribe, right in the middle of the Ituri rainforest for a whole year. And he lived there for a year, got malaria 3 times, almost died once. But what he wanted to do is live with them, listen to them, learn from them, and love them. And at that end of his stay, when he left, the chief came up and said, we now know you love us. So your name we are giving you is Efiosa, the man who loves us. And then they decided to give him one more name, which stuck. And that name was Mumbuti Mongbo, which means, and you can laugh at that, Mumbuti Mongbo means the big pygmy. Yes, he's a heavyweight mixed martial artist, and the pygmies are on average 4'7" as an adult. So it's quite a picture with Justin and his new pygmy family. So we shoot forward about 8 years, and we have helped the pygmies in the Congo, but right now we're helping the Batwa Pygmy tribe in Uganda. We realize that the pygmies are the most unloved people on this planet, that when you meet them, you'll find out they are the most lovable. And if you see this picture, you can't help but love those kids and their faces and their hearts that are they're same as ours. And yeah, Justin's having fun too. So we get with the Batwa Pygmies and see that they're not only enslaved, but they're oppressed because their government took them out of the rainforest and made them live with communities, and they had no idea how to do it. And so by the time we found them, they were going into extinction, their whole tribe. Our team leader in Uganda said, we have to help these people. They're just like the Mbuti Pygmies in the Congo. And they're lovable. Their hearts are good. They just need help. So we're bringing them, we're getting them food. Buying land for them is powerful. And then so that they can live on their own land, getting clean water is the next food. And then teaching them how to raise crops. And sorry, my phone's ringing. To raise crops and become farmers. So with that, they're not forest people and hunters, but now they're farmers, and they're learning it, and they're thriving. And it's a beautiful, beautiful picture of freedom that continues to go. And now Pygmy tribes all over Uganda, Rwanda, and 8 other countries are seeing what we're doing with the Batwa. Look at what we are teaching them through local agronomists, local people that are great farmers, and they're learning how to farm. Now, here is the most powerful story I've heard to date. 3 weeks ago, I got a call from BTEC, our team leader in Uganda. He said, I could hear the excitement in his voice. I said, we need to buy more hose and more farming equipment. I said, BTEC, we've already bought the Batwa hoses and farming equipment. Have they broken them? Have they lost them? Have they sold them? What's happened? He said, no, the community, the people around them want to come and help the Batwa with their farmland. And if you could understand thousands and thousands of years of racial barriers, racism of big tribes and pygmies, you would be crying, as I did when I heard that story, because it's showing that the love that we are pouring out to the Batwa and our team in Uganda are just loving the Batwa like their own, like their equal, like their brothers. That love has sunk in and has poured out into the lives of the communities around them. So much so, they want a piece of that love, and they don't quite understand, but they're learning. And they're learning that they want to help the Batwa, and they want to be able to make them equal standing in the community. That is a thousands and thousands of year change in racial biases and healing in a community that desperately needed it. We need it here too as well. And love is that power. So I'm going to take this, just rush through the rest of the story. But we have not stopped with our friends in Africa. We will continue until every pygmy tribe is freed from slavery and freed from the oppression of not even being able to send their kids to school and have clean water and have food for themselves to eat and food to sell in the market to actually make money. That's the story of Africa. The rest of the story is that we are now stateside because there are so many people, so many kids in schools right now that are totally depressed, and even to the point of their thought process is thinking about suicide. There are so much greater percentages of those kids that and we can start on the East Coast, we can end on the West Coast, and pour over this country with the love that will overpower those disabilities, those problems that we have. That's a quick picture of the chief and his wife, chief of the Batwa Pygmies in Bundibugyo, Uganda. And what a beautiful story that is. And our documentary team producer is there with us. And what a story, what a picture. So over here, we're pushing forward on a curriculum that's designed for martial arts academies to go into the academies for kids to learn character development and even anti-bullying that they deal with every day of their lives. We have now just joined with us a group called Generation Y. That's a picture of the team. It's hip hop artists, they're dancers, they're spoken word artists, they're speakers. They go into public schools and touch the hearts of kids like no other assembly has ever been able to do that I know of. They have started here in Oklahoma, but they've been in Michigan, California. We're wanting to spread this out throughout the country and then beyond and scale it to worldwide applications. A powerful group of kids that just have a heart to help their friends, their kids that they know in school. And they're so close in age to them that they relate very, very well. So I want to finish by, I've told a long story of this is crazy. What's happening in Africa? People are being freed from slavery and being equal with the community around them in not stature. They're still short, but they go to the community meetings as one equal partner. And that's a powerful story. The other story is over here stateside, is touching the hearts, and we've got to reach the kids that are being bullied, that are desperately reaching out for someone to go up to them and say, let's go have lunch. I want to hear your story. And that just takes a little, if you want to call it risk, that might be it. But who is, and maybe you can answer this question, who is the domino that made Fight for the Forgotten as powerful and effective as it is today? You have an answer for that or a guess? Some say it's the coaches. Yeah, Olympic gold medal coaches, but they got a hold of Justin early on, and it didn't take effect. He carried that oppression, depression in his heart. Yes, it was the friend, and I don't know his name. But do you realize that even friends that even don't care if anybody knows their name, knows that God, the one whose finger nudged the friend to fight for Justin, was the domino that led on to the rest of the dominoes and the rest of the story. That love defeats hate. That love can be so powerful if you have your eyes wide open and say, man, I want to love somebody today. Hey, that's a good picture. It's in the foreground is Justin Wren. Now, if you notice in the background, it's all fuzzy and blurry. It's a guy, that's me. That's me in the background. That's who we can be. We don't have to be in the foreground. We can be clear and effective as long as we are willing to be that person that would be nudged by our God, the creator of the universe and the creator of our hearts and our person, to be able to nudge us to see the dominoes and see a story that you can start through the power of love. It can be effective, and it will be effective as we all join in and help others defeat their hate and their evil with love. I sure appreciate this. I think we're a few minutes ahead of time, but if we have any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer them.
Jim, I would like to actually start off with one question that I think many people are wondering. We saw in the pictures that you also have actually made some trips to Central Africa to work with the Pygmy people. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience there? You know, did you get to go with Justin and work there together, and what has it been like?
Sure. Yes and no. I've been 5 times. I have taken the last trip with Justin just 2 years ago to Bundabugyo to meet with the Batwa Pygmies and work with our team there. If you remember in the story, the young child with his eyes and it's almost like they're drawing downward, and you can see the depression and the pain in that child. His name is Paulo. And we can all pray for Paulo, because in the real world of pygmies, there is evil. And there's a rumor or a superstition that witch doctors tell other people that if they abuse a Batwa pygmy, a pygmy, and get their blood and drink it, or abuse them physically, then you will be healed. They think there's a supernatural plant that is inside them. So that has to be broken off. I saw that with my own eyes in Uganda. Been to Zambia. A lot of the trips were helping teams learn how to drill water wells and get to know them personally. It's interesting that no matter where you are, Zambia, Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda, it does not matter. Every person you meet everywhere around the world has the same heart. It's probably the most amazing thing that you can tell, because when you meet somebody halfway around the world and see their eyes and their smile, you finally see their heart. And it's beautiful.
Great, thank you, Jim. We have a question actually from one student. Actually, we have a couple questions that have to do with the work that you are doing to combat bullying here in the States. So actually, we have one question from Brittany Henry. Brittany, do you want to ask your question directly to Jim?
Come on, Brittany.
Yes, sir.
There you are.
The question I have is, hi.
Hi.
The question I have is, do you have any tips to approach a situation where students are struggling with bullying, especially students, school-age students, so like high school, elementary?
It was kind of coming in and out a little bit. Could you help me with that question?
Can you say it one more time, Brittany?
Okay, so I wanted to know if you have any tips on approaching a situation where someone is struggling with bullying, especially school-age bullying.
Right.
See, I missed some of that.
I heard it. So what Brittany was asking is, do you have any tips for someone who is approaching a situation where someone is struggling with bullying. So for someone who's actually in high school, especially if they're dealing with bullying, do you have any tips for how to approach this kind of situation?
It always has to be, we always ask the student to be smart and have discernment. You don't want to put yourself in harm. However, most of the time, if you're seeing a bullying situation, the bully and the bullied, and people are around you, it just seemed like we're saying these people are innocent bystanders, but we don't say that. We really say that you're silent supporters if you're just watching and doing nothing. 85% of the time, if someone in the background says, hey, that's not nice, that's not kind, stop, then 85% of the time the bully stops. And that's a fact that you can hold with you and will empower you to say, okay, I'm going to take the risk and I'm going to say this, hey, stop this, and know that you got a good chance because you're a student. And when students step in instead of a teacher, you all have more power because of the love that you have for your fellow students. And so it usually goes away. The other times you can just see it, know what's going on, and tell a teacher later would help as well. So be active as much as you can when you see it.
Okay, thank you, Jim. We have another question. This is from Yonili Hernandez. Yonili, do you want to ask your question to Jim directly?
Help me with this if you can understand her. There you are.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry. So I want to ask, because I have experienced bullying before, like back where I was in middle school, in high school, but like I don't care anymore yet. I forget about it. So when I went to my principal, like in the school, she always told me like, oh, those people bully you because they have experienced bully before, so they became like the bullying themselves. So I want to ask, like, is that a situation that can happen where like people experience bully and because of that they like feel something on them, like they want to they try like to cope with it and they hurt other
people? Great question. The fact of this is that the bully is the most hurting. And normally the bully is somebody that's being bullied at home or had been bullied at school. He's just kind of, the anger and everything is raising up against him. Everybody wants control. So that's the person that if you would have the opportunity to feel the love in your heart for that person, because hurting people hurt people. So there's a hurting story that goes along with that bully. And if you could, here's another risk, but it shouldn't be too risky, just to go up and say, hey, buddy, yeah, I'll buy you lunch today. Can I have lunch with you? I want to hear your story. I would love to hear your story. And if you can get them to open up, and if that hurt gets out of them, it might be one of those domino effect stories that you can tell 10 years later to say, look what happened.
I actually like happy hearing you saying that because like weeks ago, this person always bullied me in school. I have never talked to, like I talked to, have never talked to them after school closed. And he called me like, I'm sorry for what I did to you. I was
Ah,
like, whoa,
okay.
what is going on?
Success. Success.
I was surprised what he did. I was like, wait.
No, I tell you what, that person knows what he does to people. And when he or she feels impressed or nudged, let's call it nudged, to ask forgiveness to somebody that he or she has been bullying, that's healing. And that's where healing starts within the school system. And that's when school systems change and a better environment happens. People learn more, people are loving more, and even teams are playing better because everybody's feeling that the power of forgiveness. Great question.
Jim, we have a follow-up question from Brittany. Brittany, I'm going to read it for you, okay? So that Jim can hear it clearly. So Brittany asked a follow-up question. What she said was, I've been in school as a practicing teacher, but I realized that the schools don't have an approach towards bullying. They treat it like it is something that will pass because they don't know what to really do. But I see that the student is hurting and is ignored. What ideas or programs do you suggest schools could have to help students?
Great question. We are, among other groups, finally getting involved with the school systems, the State Department of Education. So there are departments of education that are overseeing the state schools with superintendents, and then principals telling the superintendents, oh, we don't have a bullying problem. And yet there is a bullying problem. So when teachers speak out to principals, it is really powerful to get to the superintendent and then all the way up to the Department of Education. We are on the list of the Oklahoma Department of Education, to where we are recognized as a group that can go into school and address these issues and their trauma issues, their health and safety issues. So the federal government is getting behind that as well. So things are happening right now that even in the federal government pushing it out to the states, that I don't know what state you live in, but it's going to every state, that we have to deal with the health and safety of our kids. And that rolls down into all the other trauma issues that go along with it.
All right, very good. I think great. Okay, we got great pictures and we really appreciate it. Jim, thank you so much for joining us today. We really are praying for the mission of Fight for the Forgotten.
Thank you very much.
And we're really so touched to hear the role you played working with Justin and also working with the people in Central Africa. Thank you so much.